I want to start talking a little bit about LSU's offensive line and what they're going to attempt to get accomplished against Alabama with the personnel that they have. You know that you're not going to have your left tackle. Tyree Adams is out. So what are you going to do at left tackle? I thought Carius Curne was a good solution. I was excited when they made that move to him for the game against Texas A&M. Of course, you saw, early in that game, Cassius Howell comes off the edge and gets that big sack, and you're like, I don't know if he can pass protect, but they did run the football, especially to the left, behind Carius Curne and Cohen Eccles pretty well early in that game, and they got into a situation where they had to throw it late in the second half, and just didn't go very well. But you're talking about an Alabama defense that has been a little bit susceptible to the run. They're 95th in the country in yards per carry allowed. That's 4.5 yards per carry. They're better in terms of their passing defense. They're 12th in the country there in passing defense. They're 13th in the country in passing touchdowns allowed. Like, they don't allow a lot of big plays. They're 4th in the country in 20-plus yard passes allowed. Like, they're susceptible on the ground. You saw Vanderbilt was able to run it against them a little bit on the ground. You saw certainly Florida State was really able to make some hay against Alabama on the ground. LSU doesn't have the mobile quarterback those guys have, but you do have dynamic running backs that you've got to get behind and run. And let's see what they're going to do at left tackle. I think DJ Chester's probably going to be the answer. I didn't like Frank Wilson's tone yesterday when he mentioned that Curne was going to be questionable. Now, I don't have a lot of experience in Frank Wilson dealing with the media to be able to decipher things the way that I might with other coaches that I've covered for a little bit longer, and maybe Curne's going to be okay. We'll see when that availability report comes out on Wednesday. But more often than not, guys that have been probable have gone, and then when you start to get into questionable and certainly doubtful, you've had guys miss time. And with him saying that Curne's going to be questionable, I don't feel great about that on Monday. So I think it's going to be DJ Chester. I don't think they're going to move Weston Davis over to left tackle. We talked to Glenn West about that in the first hour. That just seems like a very, very poor idea. And this is a Brian Kelly quote. Brian Kelly said they're not going to move Josh Thompson out to tackle. He was pretty adamant about that, which to me suggests they at least had those conversations. Thompson did play right tackle at Northwestern in 2023. He moved inside to right guard at 2024, and he's played right guard for you here in 2025. It's just it's a disappointing situation LSU finds itself in where you don't necessarily have a tackle that you can trust. I realize that Adams got hurt, and I realize that Curne is now hurt, and that's obviously going to put anybody behind the 8 ball. But here's the deal that I say this all the time. And it's not the football guy in me. I just don't have that gear like my guy BT has, Brandon Taylor on the pre- and post-game show, like certainly Hester and Flynn do on the morning show. And those guys have football like in their blood. I'm just analyzing this from the outside. You can say next man up all you want, and it is literally correct. The next man up's got to go play. There's a reason he's the next man up and not the man. And I just feel like you've got an offensive line that's going to go into this situation compromised. If LSU could play Tyree Adams at left tackle and Carius Curne at right tackle in this game, I would feel better about the offense significantly. The fact that you probably have neither of them makes me feel significantly worse about the offense. I think it limits your ability to run the ball. I think it limits your quarterback's confidence. I think it limits the play calls that you can make because you can't get the ball down the field because you don't feel like you have enough time to call those plays. So they're going to have to do some things a little bit differently. And that, to me, is why I think you may see some of your backup quarterback, Michael Van Buren, in the game. You might see some direct snaps at Juwan Johnson. You might see some things to try to give LSU a numbers advantage because you don't have a talent advantage. You got to win one of them. You either got to win the war up front or you got to outnumber them up front. And to me, like, because Michael Van Buren can throw the ball a little bit, because Juwan Johnson gives you another gear, you might need to help this offensive line and do that. I don't know if the answer is to bring Donovan Green in on one side and bring Bauer Sharp in on the other side and plant them next to those tackles and play with 2 tight ends all day. Like, I don't think that's your answer. You still want to spread the field, but when you spread the field and you do so with an offensive line that you don't feel like can keep Alabama from getting pressure and blowing up your offense, like that's tough. Bama's not been a great pass rush. They're 82nd in the country in sacks. They haven't been a terror up front. They're 69th in the country in tackles for loss at just 5.5 per game. This is not one of those Saban defenses with Quinnen Williams. And I mean, I could go the names on and on and on and on. You know, the guys that were just impossible to block with Jonathan Allen and Marcel Darius. And I mean, it was a different guy year over year over year with Tim Williams and Will Anderson. And like, you know, Dallas Turner, like they don't have that. This is not that. But does LSU have the guys up front to go ahead and take it to Alabama? I don't know. I mean, look, Florida State's no world beater. Vanderbilt doesn't do it traditionally. They move their offensive line here and there. But I feel like I would be fairly convicted in what I saw from LSU's running game against Texas A&M 2 weeks ago. Like that first half was really eye-opening. Like they really did run the ball. Berry looked comfortable and confident and patient, and Durham broke off that big run. And I that offense that I saw, that group that I saw, I think could run it on Alabama. I really do. When you take now probably your two best tackles off the field, I don't know if I feel as good about it. Maybe LSU can win in the interior. You still have Eccles. You still have Moore. You still have Thompson. And maybe you get into, like Colin was talking about in the last segment, you get into some power and maybe decide you run two, you help with the tight end there, and you try to win between the tackles, try to win in that A gap, try to win in that B gap. Maybe you get Jack Pyburn back there at fullback and try some of that you saw. You've had a bye week and a new coaching staff to put a fresh look on this. You've got time to do some things that are some wrinkles in the running game. But I don't know if it's enough. I don't know if you can overcome the losses that you've got based on where you were personnel-wise to start. You are the worst running team in the SEC again. You were the worst running team in the SEC last year. So for 2 years straight, that's your biggest weakness. And when you look at Bama and you look at what they do well and you look at where they struggle, more importantly, which is stopping the run at times, can you make that hurt? I just don't know. So we'll be looking at what Frank Wilson has to say at the teleconference tomorrow at 10 o'clock. We'll look for his press conference on Thursday. We'll have availability reports from practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we'll have a better look at this on Friday afternoon when we do this segment and start looking at it. But early in the week, just on Tuesday, as I sit here, my confidence level is just not there that these guys can make that hurt. It's not to say that Bama's going to dominate LSU up front and that they can't. I mean, I'm looking for LSU to find an advantage on the field. That's what I'm looking for. I want to find a spot where LSU can win. And I just don't know if I see that at this point, which is a bit of a bummer there. So just looking, continuing to evaluate. If you want to take a look at Alabama and what they do as far as statistically speaking, which is literally the name of the piece, I've got one every single Monday on LSU's opponents. It's up there for free on LouisianaSports.net right now. And you can see what it's color-coded. Red's what they're not very good at. Green's what they're very good at. Just a lot of numbers. It's not a very difficult read. You just go through and check out the numbers, see what the color code says. But it suggests that Bama plays a little bit more finesse this year. They're way better throwing it than they are running it. They're way better stopping the pass than they are stopping the run. So my immediate inclination is, okay, how do we run it on this, guys? And it involves Harlem Berry, but it might involve a lot more than that. We'll see what LSU is able to do coming up on Saturday. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.